Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. That's Rob, I'm Brian. This week is the week we're going to have cars on a racetrack for real, and we just finished testing, and the race is in days, and it's here. The season is back, baby.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh. As much as testing is only testing and there's no real kind of hot laps going on, how good was it to see them going around the track
Cars
again?
on track, baby.
It was awesome. So, lots to dive into this week. We have got news and social roundup, featuring the most important news, which is what's going on in the best F1 track of all time, F1 February Fantasticness update. Video Vault, which is really going to be very laser focused on a couple of topics. Then a testing review of what we made of what we saw of testing. Then a conversation with Adam from
FantasyHQ,
which you'll hear all about him and what he's doing. It's amazing what they're achieving with their fantasy site. And then what comes next, Brian? Because we don't normally do this. Oh yeah, a race preview.
It's back. Oh, we made it through the long off season. All of us together, the Dirty Siders, we banded together and we slogged through it and, lived a normal life. And we interacted with people and talked about things that weren't F1. And now we can go back to what we like and just do this.
We go back to being F1 nerds.
And it's back on. Put my little propeller beanie on and here we go. But Rob, as you said, we wanted to talk about the bracket. So hashtag February F1 Fantasticness, finding the best F1 track of all time. You need to be voting, following us on Threads and Twitter at F1 Dirty Side. Right now, as you're listening to this, we're recording on Saturday. This will be published on Sunday. We will be in our last semifinal. The final four tracks that made it to the semifinals are Interlagos, Spa, Monza, and Silverstone. And the first semifinal just wrapped up this morning. 69% of the vote is in. Don't make a face. That's the actual percentage. And we have a winner, and Spa has beaten Interlagos. So now, yes.
Well, no. So interestingly, Brian, which adds even more validity to the view of the people, is that those are the Twitter results, right? And we thought we'd put it out on Threads to see if it was a different community, different kind of feeling. Other than one head-to-head that just went Cota's way rather than Monaco's way.
In the first round,
even. First round,
right.
Every single matchup since has been identical. We've just concluded the semi-final on Threads for Spa against Interlagos.
Did it also get 69%?
In a 67% win, Spa takes it 67%. How crazy is that?
That's crazy. So we will have vote now. Vote now, as we say in Chicago. Vote early and vote often. Monza versus Silverstone will be live when you hear this. I'll be publishing it here as we hang up this recording on Saturday to get that going. And then early next week, or in a couple days from now, we'll have the final. Spa versus TBD, either Monza or Silverstone. This is exciting. We have the best driver of all time from last year. We got the best track of all time. I can't wait for the next hashtag February F1 Fantasticness, but I'm also excited to not have to do this work every 12 to 14 hours.
You invented this. This was your idea. So you're kind of a victim of your own
brainchild.
Nerdism.
Yes.
Was it going to be best tire of all time next year, knowing you?
Oh,
anyway,
the super softs with the pink. Okay.
Then we kind of get into pre-testing news, and obviously now we're going to be talking this with Captain Hindsight in play because we've seen testing. But James Vowell downplayed what was going to happen in testing. He said they'd prioritize virtual testing during the off-season because they were scrambling. They were making so many fundamental changes on the car. They didn't even bother running in the Silverstone shakedown that a lot of teams did because they looked at it and said, it's a wet track. We're probably not going to learn that much. We've got so much we need to learn. We're going to miss the opportunity of putting a car on track. We're just going to do it virtually instead. I mean, and then they arrived late in Bahrain again because apparently there's so many changes going on this. Now, it's hard not to leap forward to our testing review, Brian, but I don't think they set the world alight there, and maybe they weren't expecting to when they arrived late. But
I feel like, do you remember the first Drive to Survive when they were behind the scenes and Williams was also late and really didn't even run a lot in testing because...
Yeah, that's right. They turned
up that?
Days late.
Is Paddy Lowe back at Williams heading up the team? Because that was the dude who did it then. Anyway, speaking of the season ahead, after the Williams conversation, before we get to testing, there was an article, a noteworthy news piece about Jeff Dodds, Formula E CEO. Jeff Dodds decided to run his big old yapper and explain why Formula E, without actually saying this, is better than F1 because of the parity in Formula E as opposed to F1, which doesn't have any. And he said if Max Verstappen doesn't win the 2024 championship, Jeff Dodds will donate $250,000 to the charity of the winner's choice. Why would you do that? Like, what is he? I know he's trying to generate pub and get people to watch Formula E, but come on, man. Why you got to say that to it? We know what we're about to watch happen this season. You ain't got to rub our nose in it.
Yeah, but like you said, why has he got to say that? For all those other reasons that you just cited. I mean, that's exactly why he did it, right?
Come on, Dodds. Don't be a Dodds.
And then there wasn't a lot going on news-wise because everybody was kind of testing was the main news. So we're going to cover that in a minute. The last thing I found, which I don't know, this is a nothing burger or just Vegas community trying to make a better deal this year, but I went down this kind of rabbit hole of looking into Vegas because I saw a news article about is it going to definitely happen this year? I was like, but me and Brian reported last year that it got a 10-year deal. So what's going on? And it said, well, there might well be an agreement between what does it stand for? Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority and F1. They haven't explicitly committed to hosting an annual race. There's like a 10-year agreement, which is mainly procedural for, I don't know, for ordinance waivers, whatever they are. I don't even know what they are, but apparently they're important to have. And there's been such a kind of furore of kind of the impact on businesses, the community. Well, I say it how I say it.
Aluminium.
Well, there we are. So well done. You said it correctly. Clark County has not committed to holding this each year.
What?
Now, yeah, I'm like, they say, although approval was granted last year and acknowledged it for 10 years, acknowledged apparently was not a substance of a binding agreement for annual races. That to me, I think, Brian, is nothing more than posturing so that the hotels, the restaurants, all the people that feel they were slighted last year and probably were, going to basically say, look, it's my ball, I'm taking it and going home, unless you give us better playing field this year. Yeah. Unless you kind of, just don't have such an impact on the community. I can't see them not hosting it. It doesn't make any sense.
It's happening. That's going to happen. I mean, yes, they did bother everybody with the way they had to redo the asphalt all over and over again and to get it to F1 grade. And I think they do have to do some maintenance to it every year as opposed to the full, underneath the layers and all the things, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a pain in the butt. People are going to have to agree to this, but there's no way they're not doing it, and here's why. Formula One built $1 billion place there. They built that paddock. They bought land. They put that there. That sure as hell ain't going away after a year. It's not going to be some arcane relic of a race run once and then never run again. Nah. And as much as I'd love to say, the reason I got so excited about the hashtag, Chicago GP and all the, things they patented, maybe that was a backup move in case, Miami fails or this fails. This is not failing. This will be in Vegas, I promise you. But it was fascinating. I did see this, and it is good to know that Clark County Commissioner Tick Segerblum had something to say about whether or not he's a real Dodds, he or she. They are real Dodds.
Yeah, and I think all that's going to happen is that they just wanted a way to get back around the table and say, right, okay, last year wasn't a roaring success for some hotels, restaurants, whatever it might be. What can you do, F1, to kind of make it a bit better for us when you invade our town for 2 weeks, but city, whatever. But that was it, really. Didn't find much else kind of scratching around.
Because everyone was going to Bahrain for testing. Yes, sir. Yeah. A quick video vault because something big did happen besides testing. So let's open it up and talk a tiny bit about Drive to Survive. So I don't have any items that are non-Drive to Survive. It's obviously the biggest deal around right now. Launched yesterday here in the States with testing and Drive to Survive. 3 full days of 8 hours of testing a day. Those were kind of our focal points. So I don't have any additional videos. Now, Rob, you've started DTS without giving any spoilers because I haven't yet.
I won't give any spoilers, but I would say, the other videos probably, and I'll try and find them, is the daily summaries that the F1 channel did for 3 days of testing. So so did I. Even though I watched as much as I could, I used those and I thought they were great. So we'll pin those in there. So those will be the videos to go watch. But Drive to Survive, right? Any regular listeners of this pokey little pod will know that I haven't always been the biggest fan of this franchise. Whatever you call it.
What was that?
I don't know what that was. I'm getting flashbacks to when I did the Hey Now and
The podcast.
the podcast.
It doesn't
anyway,
help that you're
so-
learning your English accent from me with my nasally Midwestern approach.
Anyway, I think I'm only 3 episodes in. I've just started episode 4. And by Jove, I think they've cracked it. Because without giving any spoilers,
Yeah.
what I will say they seem to have done in the first 3 and a bit that I've watched is rather than insert fake drama into the sport to make their show, they seem to have worked out how to take the natural stories of the show and wrap drama around it. But by doing that, by taking a genuine story arc that we can all go, oh yeah, remember that happening, and then wrapping the dramatic music and the camera angles and the little sound bites of what's he doing and F this and, because that doesn't feel forced. That just feels like good TV show making
Yeah.
of upping some natural drama around a real story. And I would say so far, unless the next 6 suddenly go back to what I've seen them do in previous years with all the fake drama, where you're sitting there going, hang on a minute, that didn't happen in that order. What are you trying to do to us? I'm really loving it. I'm absolutely loving the first 3 with
Great.
Chef's Kiss.
I
Yes.
can't wait. So I will say this is season 6. There are 10 episodes like usual. We have everyone I think has seen the names of the episodes: Money Talks, Fall from Grace, Under Pressure, The Last Chapter, Civil War, Leap of Faith. My favorite is chapter 7 because I'm learning French. C'est la vie.
Well done. Do you know
Look
what it
at me.
means?
Yeah, this is the life.
That's life. It literally
that's life.
translates to that is life, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, say la vie. Forza Ferrari. Look at me now. I know Italian too. Three's a crowd. Red or black. English, Italian, French. Your boy Seth.
So I'll give you a quick summary of the first
Trilingual.
3 without any kind of plot lines, just as to what's in them.
Careful now.
No plot.
Okay.
Money Talks is about money, but there's no actual money talking. Okay, so there's no kind of like dollar bills actually like
You're just gonna waste my time with this joke here.
No, I'm not. It's very well done. Episode 3 focuses on McLaren, and that one I'm waiting for you to watch because I think it's brilliant. So.
Oh wow, I can't wait to see it. I will say this: I agree with you about seasons prior, and I love Drive to Survive, and we as a very welcoming community when fans come on who learned about F1 through Drive to Survive, you're welcome here. Like I don't care if you're been a fan forever or from Drive to Survive. I definitely thought season 4 was a turning point where it got overly dramatic, where they ginned it up, where they actually put stuff together that never happened in the order they made it. 4 for me, 1 through 3 were great. 4 was terrible. 5 was a little better. It wasn't as overly hammed up because I think they got the feedback. And if 6 is back to the 1 through 3 approach that you're saying it is, then I probably should cancel all my plans this afternoon. My kids are going to have to walk to dance. I'm not going to be around to drive.
I started off this morning taking my son to swim practice and thought I'd dip into the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and all of a sudden I'm
3
into
episodes
episode 4.
later.
Yeah, 3 episodes later. And
My
I'm into
daughter's
episode
going to be
4,
on the
so-
side of the road with her point shoes looking to get to ballet class with her thumb out. Like, I need a ride.
Well, the best thing is my son is learning to drive, so all I had to do was get the car there and then wait for him, and then he drove us back while I just watched my phone and ignored him for the entire drive back. So
There you go.
Anyway, let's slam up that video vault and get moving into testing, Brian.
Sounds good. Let me find the button, and there it is.
Find the key. It's a real door, not the button, Brian. It's a real door.
Well, it's
not a sound
electronic.
effect.
I mean, that's what
Oh,
it sounds
right,
like. It's an
okay.
electronic door, but it has the
Right.
clunk of effect. So, yes, testing. Rob, talk to us about testing. I'm so excited. These are real cars on track going around. Here we go, testing.
So we're not going to try and do like a breakdown of like race weekend where we kind of put it in because I can't
much.
really remember the order of all of this happening because I was trying to
Too much
watch
and
while
too varied.
working and then trying to do the catch-ups of the dailies. So this is probably going to be in random orders, but I'm a bit of a sucker for because I kind of love the way they look so primitive in such a high-tech sport, but I can't get enough of aero rates. And if
They're different. Some of
No,
them,
I'm gonna-
most
so-
teams
I was gonna
have the
say-
grid. I'll let you explain what you like
Okay.
because I agree with
So-
you. But
for people that maybe didn't watch testing or don't know what aero rakes are like, imagine that you have a beautiful top-end F1 car with all of the gizmos of aerodynamics, and it's just such a beautiful piece of machinery. And then you go and stick a metal grill on it at random points that stick out like bat wings, and it just looks hilarious. But it's still to this day, apparently, the very, very good way of measuring the airflow with all these millions of little sensors. Well, not millions, but
Pitot
sensors
tubes.
all over the aero rake
Yes.
to measure the airflow. And I love watching them because they look like they're about to snap off any minute. But you're right. This year they raised the game. Ferrari had one on the back end that I've not seen before that looked like Spider-Man had just
Yes.
webbed the back of the car.
Yes. So normally, Rob's right. So it's a grill. It looks like a grill from a grill, like the top of your grill, and you take it off, and it has pitot tubes, like an airplane has, measuring all kinds of airflow, and so it's normally laid out on a grid, and so it looks like you're playing Battleship with these things, they're like C4, hit, and so you can kind of see the way it's set up. Ferrari, on the other hand, took one with like he said, it looked like a spider web, and it was so cool looking. It took the craziness of an aero rake to that level. And the second thing that I loved, you loved the aero rakes. The second part that teams were using was FlowViz. And so I enjoy FlowViz as much as anybody. FlowViz is green. It's like a green, it's not really paint, but it's a paint-like substance. You put on the car, it blows around, and you watch it through high-speed cameras how it's moving. McLaren, there's a great photo out there, covered the entire side of the car in FlowViz. Like, I don't think they meant to, but by the time that they got, I can't even tell if who's driving, if it's Oscar or Lando, because the number's covered in FlowViz. And so the whole side of the car is neon green, which then begged a question and a joke I've been using. What would Stake do? What would Sauber do? Because they have a green car. How would you see the green on green? They used orange or red. I can't tell because I'm colorblind, but a reddish type color. And it was so cool. I enjoyed the FlowViz, the aero rakes, Ferrari's aero rake, chef's kiss. I would actually put that on my own car. Maybe I'll put it on the back of my car. And I can use one of my blanks to deploy the aero rake. We'll see.
I mean, I love the fact that like Ferrari, they have to have the style that goes with it. So it's almost like they kind of looked at the rakes and went, what are these ugly things? I'd rather have a less functional rake, but it looks beautiful. So go and kind
How
of
do
put
we
this
make
web
it
on
look
the back.
good?
Exactly. But then we got into stuff that I know is your wheelhouse. Pardon the pun, but tires.
Mm.
I got so confused because we've got in potentially we had all of them, right? C1 through C6, I think. And they all
5.
retained the colors. Was it C5?
We didn't have
Whatever
C0.
it is.
Yes.
Well, whatever. But we had like the white, but then we had white without brackets, and then we had yellow with brackets, yellow without brackets, and I thought we had red with brackets and red without, so I counted 6, but okay, maybe there were only 5 that they took. But because of that, and because your brain is tuned into associating certain colors with whether they're hard, medium, or soft, it confused me because obviously in Bahrain, as we know, they only take 3 tires. So what can be the hard tire in one race it could be a soft tire in one race, might be a medium in another, and so on and so forth. And I'm watching them thinking, why are they just running around on mediums? But they go, and just remember that the medium tire is the soft tire for next week. I'm like, what? My brain hurts. Like,
so I think the way this goes, right, and I may screw this up because I didn't really get a chance to dig into this too much, but you nailed it. So there was no C0. There are 6 compounds. There's C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. That's 5. The way the markings went was C1 was white without bands, because normally that's the white tires are the hard tires. C2 was white with bands. C3 was yellow, because that was in the middle of the 5. C4 was red with bands. And C5, the softest, was red with no bands. I'm pretty sure I got that right, because I love this stuff. 2, you are correct. They're all going to shift, because as they always do, they use the colors relative to each other, not relative to the compound. And in Bahrain, because it's in the desert, and the sand and all the different degradation factors, I'm fairly certain the Bahrain event will have C1, C2, and C3 as the compounds. So hard, not quite, they don't have a C0, but the first 3 that they had in testing will be in Bahrain. The difference being, now the soft tire will be the C3 of the 3.
So it'll be red
instead.
So they would have used white, no bands, and yellow, but that yellow will be red next week.
Correct, and the white with bands will be yellow, and white no bands will be white band with bands.
Well, that's why it confused me so much, because it's easy when you get to race weekend. And actually looking back on it, I like the way they made that change, because you know what you're looking at. You're looking at white, yellow,
me too.
red.
I do too. I think that's great. You don't have to know which of the 6 compounds are there.
Yeah, testing just threw me for a loop. But anyway, one of the other things that I really enjoyed was the commentary, because there were moments where cars were not out on track. And sometimes this seemed to coincide when I was maybe on a coffee break and was actually able to kind of watch it a bit more rather than kind of having it on in the background. So I'd look across and think, there's no cars. And they were going down some really weird rabbit holes of random discussions. They went on a big colour debate and about whether McLaren is really papaya, because if you look up the papaya paint tone from, say, paint manufacturers, the shade that they would say is papaya is definitely not what you see on a McLaren. Then they started going down the way that the human eye interprets colour, much to you, Brian, with the colour blindness, and then went on to back round to the good old black and blue versus white and gold dress debate. And this went on.
Really? They were
Yeah,
really
this,
stretching it out, stretching out.
they really knew they had nothing to talk about because nothing was going around tracks. People were kind of making tweaks to cars, changing floors. Uh, they actually watched the mechanics clean Floviz off the floor for a while because they were wiping it off. I think Lando's car ready for him to go back out again. As he pulled out, there was like all of it over the floor. So someone's job is to just clean up Floviz all over the place. But yes, there were some challenging moments for the commentary team.
In addition to that, we did see, though, people finishing laps. So we did have also one other thing. Twice, the drain cover at turn 11 came up. 2 times. Not just once, 2 times. And the first time,
Yes,
wouldn't you know, it damaged the Ferrari. And
yeah.
so it came up, and the Ferrari floor, but it was Charles. And apparently Carlos saw this happening. I heard this in the periphery. And he was like running to pointing at the track. The drain is up, and Charles didn't. I mean, how would he know? He wasn't on the radio. So Charles ran it over and damaged the floor of his Ferrari. I love all the people. When the Vegas drain thing happened. Well, this wouldn't happen on a purpose-built track.
Yeah.
Wrong. It happened
all
again
the
the
Vegas
next day.
haters, all the Vegas haters suddenly kind of disappeared into the background, where it's like, well, yeah, but this is fine because it's checks notes for answer.
Yeah, exactly. And then it happened the next day. I think it hit the Red Bull. I think they were under there looking, and it was less damaging because I think it was just a portion of a drain. But man, so the drains happened and people ran laps, and I want to do something. I want to give somebody their flowers. This is really important. This will be the only time all year we highlight this team as being the best. Haas ran the most laps. Give it up for Haas, everybody. Let's get a round of applause in here for Haas. I don't think we're going to be celebrating them much this year. They ran 441 laps. That doesn't really mean much, but they ran a lot.
Who knows? Who knows if it will or it won't, Brian? You know, they struggled. They were good. Where were they good last year? Qualifying.
Nowhere.
Where did they suck?
Everywhere.
Racing, right? So maybe they decided not to worry about any quick runs. They just wanted to get as much long running under their belt.
Their tires fell apart quick when they were running.
Fell apart all the time last year. So actually, the fact they did 441 without bits of tire falling off and going everywhere. If I saw one clip, and I don't know if this happened to all the cars and I just missed it. Haas cars seem to have big stickers in the middle of the tread, like big white stickers, like just slapped on them.
Huh.
And is that because they've just come fresh out the blankets? But I was thinking, no, why would they do that? And I wonder if they were like some kind of like wear measure device, or like even if it's only as rudimentary as a sticker, I guess they could kind of see. I don't know. I just saw it and I just thought it looked weird that they just, my tires have just arrived from Amazon and they still got the stickers on.
It's got the shipping label on it. I did like. So we just to close liveries, right? So I thought they'd be great. They weren't, but they're not as bad as I thought they were. I did like that white halo. You mentioned this to me, and I hadn't seen anything yet. I went and watched. It actually pops. It sticks out as they go around the track. It's the one benefit from keeping them from being last, in my opinion.
Let's cover those before we move into looking at some of the times that people put up. So me and Brian both made some predictions about worst and best liveries.
Oh boy!
I think we've got 100% failure rate coming up here.
Yes, we do, but one especially glorious failure.
Yeah, one glorious one for Brian. We wanted to wait until we'd seen them go around track because we felt that studio lighting or whatever lighting you want to put when you put these press relaunches out don't fully them in the best light. And there were definitely movers on my behalf. So I'd said that I thought the worst one was going to be Haas. I think I said, right?
Yes, you did.
Yes. And it absolutely was up there fighting to be last for me when I saw the reveals. But yeah, the one thing I messaged you was like, actually, when I see it going around on track, just the pure black and white element, a bit like our logo, but the way the halo is white and kind of just sort of pops and sort of frames the car a bit more, it's jumped up a number of spots for me. So yeah, I'm wrong. A Haas was not my worst by a long way.
I thought they'd be my favorite. They're not my favorite. So I was wrong there too. I will say this though. When we picked our least favorite, I'll save my least favorite for a second, but the one I literally debated on the air here, I said, it could very well be Alpine. They're going to go do something all French and it won't look good. I should have stuck to my guns because they're my least favorite. But you know who was a close second? And this is to your point. They looked great in the studio. For me is Williams. I couldn't, and you said this to me on our call the other day when we were chatting. You're like, they kind of look the same. They do. As they go around track, it's like a bunch. The side is all exposed carbon fiber. It's just black, and there's some blue splashed on the top. And if you don't catch a little pink as it's going around, you're like, Williams? Alpine?
Yeah, I just felt both of those. Alpine is definitely my least favorite, and it didn't do any favors seeing it on track. Williams fell right down the pecking order because it just blue doesn't seem to pop enough when it's out on track, so it kind of looked a bit Alpine-ish for me. really, I hate to say this, but joining down at the bottom of the pile, then kind of my third worst is Mercedes, because all the press angles showed how brilliant that silver piece is on it to bring the silver and the black together. But unless you happen to have that head-on shot down down the straight or the overhead, maybe from the helicopters or whatever, again, it's all black, and it all just we've got three cars now that seem to have a lot of black going on the main body of the car. Um, so yeah, kind of those were down there. Then I kind of got like a little run in the middle of maybe cars that are almost the same, but I like them. So, I've got probably Aston and Red Bull kind of in the mix there because, well, they're classic. They didn't change much. I still like them, but they're
Yeah.
not down the bottom for me. Coming up probably through the top, then I'm looking at, I will go Visa, RB, Cash App, Toro Rosso, Sauber. Well, no, not Sauber. Thrown the
No.
wrong team in there.
Yeah.
Jumped up. Definitely looks better when it's running on track than what I thought with the explosion of random sponsors all over it. And I think I'm going into my top four now, unless I'm missing somebody. Is that black and green Sauber? I do like that out on
Yeah,
track.
it
So
is good.
that's probably right up there with McLaren that I said was going to be my favorite, which it almost was. I do like that McLaren. I do like the way that papaya is much darker now, and they got rid of the blue, despite the fact I like the Gulf thing. The orange and black just really works. But as transparent as I am as a fan, Ferrari is still chef's kiss for me at the top. I don't know why I didn't back myself to like the
Ferrari
Ferrari
looks
because
great. As we said, that yellow really is fantastic. But my
the
favorite,
red rims.
yes, yeah, of course, my favorite, and interestingly, what I predicted to be the worst is now my favorite, Toro Rosso. I think I got a tattoo. Is it wrong that I got a Toro Rosso tramp stamp tattoo yesterday? It says Yuki and Daniel were here. I am so all in on this team. I'm in on this team moving out of the bottom into the midfield. I'm in on the color of the car. I'm in on everything about Toro Rosso, and I can't be more excited. And I watched them sitting there on the pit wall, chatting about things, and I can't be more excited. The fact that Toro Rosso's new engineer, head of team principal is Laurent Mekies from Ferrari, the dude with the glasses and the little beard thing. I mean, like, come on now. This team is ready. The time is now. Netflix should be recording them hourly because they're going to be big news for next season. So anyway, I was pumped about that. The last thing I have on cars, colors, and things of the sort, I can't see any of the numbers. Am I the only one? I can't tell who's who. And I know it's the same car in testing. I'm not dumb. I know it's the same. So it's one guy. So if it's Lando, it's Lando. But as the car goes around, I'm like, is that Lando? I can't see the 4. I can't see any of the numbers on the back because they've shrunk the engine covers down and they put the numbers on there, but they're like facing to the sky more than anything. So I can't see any of those numbers. And unless you catch it on the nose.
The only one it really pops on, I think, more is the Ferrari. I do think kind of the numbers on the back there kind of pop a bit more, but you're absolutely right, yeah. But obviously liveries and how a car looks is such a huge part of F1.
Let's get
secondary element is how well they perform on track.
May or may not know about testing here.
And we don't, this is the good old thing. The commentary team had to cover all their bases. We're going to do it now and put the big, huge, it's only testing in front of it. But even though it's only testing, this is still a sport against the clock. Therefore, there was a list of times, and you naturally look to see who went round first. And therefore, me, as a Ferrari fan, is getting stupidly optimistic. As much as I try and crush that down inside and say it's only testing, 3 days of testing, fastest car on track that we saw was Carlos Sainz with a point to prove because he won't have a seat there next year in the Ferrari, 1 minute 29.921 on the C4, which will be important in a second, I believe, as we go down this. So
yeah, Mercedes second place, George Russell 130.368, also C4. I do have a note on the Mercedes. Again, we know this. We're not tech experts here, but they have variable suspension where they can actually attach some of the suspension to different parts of the car, meaning they can re-angle some of the rods and cones. Or no, now I'm talking about eyeballs. Anyway,
did they use a legality wire to attach that?
There's like a box on the side of the car, of the chassis, where the suspension attaches, and there are differing places where it can be attached. So from race to race, they can actually slightly change their suspension. I don't know how it'll help or add. Yes, 100%.
No, but what? Sorry, no, not and wrong word. Do you think they will? Or do you think that was a testing thing only to try to maximize the different runs they could do during testing? Because it feels like there would be an aero disadvantaged by having an extra bracket piece there that really shouldn't be there,
It's
otherwise
all hidden
causing.
behind a panel. So on the car,
Okay.
the outward side, it looks no different except it's at a different angle. And they have to reinforce the entire chassis there to handle a different load. So they've obviously done it because or else you wouldn't have it there. It's like you know
Yeah.
how convertibles have to be
Yeah.
strengthened so that they can
Yeah.
work without the roof. Same deal. So I am really curious if they'll do this throughout the year. But that was the little nerd finding that I don't know if it was Sam Collins or whomever does the nerdery on there kind of got into it. It was great. I'm like, oh wow, Mercedes actually did something a little interesting here.
Yeah. And then we always get somebody go for the glory lap in
Yes.
testing. And will this be a glory lap, or is this a sign of things to come from this team? Because we would love it if it was, being as friend of the show is part of this team, Mr. Valtteri Bottas. Sauber, although it was Joe that threw it up there, find themselves up in third place on the leaderboard with a 1 minute 30.647, hotly followed by a Red Bull, but not Max.
Are these the right
Sergio
times?
with a
Is this true?
I think so. I took this. This is the testing times fastest lap from each time in Bahrain, as taken from wheel knowledge, which is Matt
All
and
right.
Tommy. So they've got wheel knowledge. So that's where I took it from.
But that's a shocker right there, 130.679. So the Red Bull obviously was the huge talk of testing with the things that go down behind the driver's head. Craig Scarborough, we mentioned him last week actually, Scarbs Tech at Scarbs Tech. Those are halo inlets behind the driver's head that run
Hmm.
down those shoulder bumpers or brackets or haunches or whatever the heck those are. As I said with Adam in a minute here, they look like pool noodles. There's a roll hoop inlet. The things on the actual side pod, they have that shark mouth underneath inlet, and they've got a vertical inlet towards the front of it. So there are 4 different inlets that we know of at this point to make that Red Bull work. But that is an amazing design change. And again, we'll talk about this when Adam joins us in a second, so I won't
Yeah.
belabor it. But I'm excited by what Red Bull's trying to do. I'm
Well, I
curious if it'll
mean,
work.
the ominous thing is that okay, so people looking at, oh wow, Red Bull only fourth on the leaderboard. Yeah, fourth on a harder tire. They're
Harder tire,
so the
right?
C4 is softer, so they set their time of only less than what is it, point 0.6, point 0.7 seconds slower than the Ferrari on a harder compound tire.
Correct.
So and we don't know their loads. We don't know the amount of fuel they were running. We don't know if they went for a glory lap and kind of, but they obviously didn't. So it's, yeah, some people coming in and going, oh, Ferrari top of the leaderboard and Red Bull are down in fourth. Yeah, okay. Let's see how things work out in qualifying next week.
And the car behind them isn't even on C3s. We're still back to C4s with the
Yes.
Visa RB. Yuki right on their tail, about 10th of a second behind. The RB, again, I know I'm super fan over here. Every time I look at it, it looks more and more like the RB19. And so I really hope they just gave them the schematics, like Adrian Newey dropped it off, and he kind of like coughed and dropped some paper out of his folder at the Alpha Tauri offices, and then all of a sudden Toro Rosso is born. RB20 is basically here. That's the real RB20 because it's the
Yeah.
RB19.1 or whatever we should call it. So that was fascinating, and then
Let me
Williams
get
was
like a,
next. Go ahead.
yeah. No, go on, Brian.
Williams was next, and I'll let you talk about Williams, and we already hit the testing, but just the one note I have to highlight: they've moved away from the Wish.com steering wheel, and they have now
Yes.
that they call it the dashboard. It's just the screen. The screen is on the wheel. We have done it. It is 2024. We have all F1 teams have their screens on the wheel. Finally, look at us living the
Well, I was
life.
going to say Williams are in a pack of three here. That if you listen to kind of the way the commentary team were talking, you got Williams, McLaren, and Aston, and none of them really set the world alight this weekend. McLaren didn't, and even Zach Brown is starting to kind of play down some of the expectations for the early part of the season. Not as bad as last year with the kind of we went in the wrong direction type talk, but not really talking it up. Aston kind of doing the same. Williams kind of not quite sure if their radically changed car is going to do that much. So I don't know if I think we've got three teams there all with a heavy poker face on because I'm not sure we actually even saw them attempt to do sort of rocket ship type laps. I think they just had a particular program they wanted to follow. And then that's much the same as the final two. Haas and Alpine just actually seemed to abandon any interest in the stopwatch, and it was more about the lap counter. They had a program they wanted to run with. They didn't get drawn into any kind of super fast runs, but are they capable of them? We don't know. So
Right.
interesting to kind of see how some of them are. focused a little bit more on trying to get kind of those quicker ones in. Others just sort of went, we've got no interest in that. It's long runs only for us.
So let's wrap it up here a little bit. I got a couple more things I want to hit, but seriously, where do you have the teams now? Did anything change in the Rob Vale power rankings before Bahrain the race? Anything change?
Yeah, maybe. If I was going to go out on a limb, I would basically say that I don't think McLaren are going to be as strong at the beginning of the season as we saw them end. So I think we've got some, maybe everyone that's kind of thinking that they're going to carry on rocket shipping from last year and Lando's going to get his first win in the first part of the season. I think they might be a bit disappointed there. I
Yep,
actually think
agreed.
Ferrari have made the biggest step forward from last
Yes.
year.
Oh, I don't know
And
about since last year, but a big step forward in the top, I'll say.
they didn't. They didn't really threaten anything last year. Okay, we got the Singapore win, but beyond that, it was kind of the McLaren story and just how good could they be
Right.
in chasing everything down, right? So for me, I think Ferrari are clear of McLaren. I think Mercedes looked like they might have some problems, and it was summed up by, oh, who was it? Was it Jolie and Palmer? Somebody on one of the commentary teams was saying one of the things you've got to remember about Mercedes is while they have abandoned the side pod and kind of come now to a kind of a more universally accepted design, they are 2 years behind the curve of where everyone else's knowledge
Yep.
is of that design. So while it's great kudos that they've acknowledged the weakness in their design and shifted and come over to here, they're not going to instantly know all the little wrinkles of what a car that follows this type of design looks like. So everyone's kind of sort of downplaying Mercedes as, yeah, they could be another fourth and fifth and struggling to find podiums this year again. So
I like the
uh,
fact that Ferrari did a lot of good long runs, and they seem to be watching their tires. And it sounds like most people think they didn't lunch their tires as much as they were doing last year. So
yeah,
that was their problem, right? They had good quality, and then they fell apart in the race because the tires couldn't hold up. So have they fixed that? Maybe. I think that's a huge opportunity for Ferrari. I agree. Ferrari, big jump. I have them as number 2 now going into the season behind Red Bull. I dropped McLaren down a couple spots there. I still probably have Mercedes, then McLaren. I'm not as big an Aston fan as everybody else seems to be still, and I have RB. I know I said this already, so it's not a change for me, but RB looked good, and
yeah,
everybody seemed to think they were one of the 2 teams that moved up more than they expected. At least before testing, people wanted to see it. So I had RB, and then I got to be honest, I thought I'd have Williams next. I dropped Williams. Williams was another mover for me, but they moved down,
yeah.
unfortunately. And I think they'll shake out some of those gremlins, but we'll see. And then obviously I probably have Aston before Williams. I have Aston Martin, and the one other one that really solidified my feel of someone who is in trouble is Alpine. I just don't think they've got the engine nor the design that they want, and so we'll see
Yeah.
where they go. And then of course I'm sorry, I know Joe was third. I still have Sauber and Haas down towards the bottom until proven otherwise. So
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to take a flyer and say I had to pick one of a couple of teams that could upset the apple cart and get some points finishes, not crazy stuff like podium finishes, but points finishes. I'm definitely got a two-sided coin, which on one side has got the Visa Cash App shenanigans, and on the other side the equally ridiculously named team in the Kickstake,
yeah,
whatever it is.
I
But I
agree with you.
actually think they could, but I also think that could have been a one-off lap where they just kind of decided to try to raise the optimism for the season by just going for a little bit of a faster lap.
My last 2 things on testing, and I'll let you close out testing. One, did you happen to notice this? And again, I'm probably just in the RB car. Yuki had his normal headrest, right? They always have that headrest or whatever it's called. It's not it holds their head in, right? So that if they get in an accident, it's a safety feature. But there were like little bumpers on Yuki's, and I didn't notice it on anyone else's that sort of pushed towards his helmet. Did Yuki not do enough neck working out in the offseason? I'm serious. This was actually my thought. No one else had these things. I've never seen them before, and we all know how hard the neck takes it in an F1 car. We've seen Pato O'Ward recently go from Indy to Formula One as a test, and he needed these braces to hold his head in there. Is that what those are? Please tell me I'm wrong. And then I loved the commentary. I thought was actually really good. You joked about fulfilling time, and I thought they did a
He
great
did
job.
an awesome job. When they had Alex Albon up there and he thought he could smell champagne in there and he spent half the time asking if they'd been drinking. I mean, that was another highlight for me.
Loved it. But whenever they're on camera, and I only got to watch the recaps at the end of the days, I watched them all Friday night. And so I watched these. Whenever they ask Julian Palmer a question, he looks upwards. So next time you're watching an episode of any of the, closing of the event and they go to F1 TV, and they ask Julian anything, he will actually look upwards first and then give you the answer. It's interesting. Like every single time.
Is that what you've tried to? 'Cause you've put this cryptic image in our notes,
Yes.
and it looks like you're trying to circle the number 14, and I don't know why you've
That was
done
to
that.
remind me I couldn't see the numbers. Don't worry,
Okay,
I
because I
handle my
just
own
thought
notes
I thought
differently.
you'd miscircled Jolien's head.
No, that's
Then
why there's another Jolien after that.
got you right.
You don't have to tell
Okay.
everyone the secret behind my note-taking approach.
I love your note taking. I love how random it is, and I get to kind of find out in real time what you're going to talk about, which is fantastic.
Oh man.
Um, but you put a stat in here before we close out and go and listen to somebody else's view of testing. Um, the last race finished more than a lap behind the winner grid. What's all that about?
Well, I thought we could ease back into stats for the year. A little quick
Ooh.
sap stat to get us going. We're going to start off with a banger of a tune, but a single stat itself. Sap stats, preseason testing, but this isn't a testing stat edition. All right, so this is...
They're my favorite stats.
Of course, Rando Statsos. Last race that a driver finished a lap back. So the last time each driver was lapped at the completion of a race. And a lot of these have technical challenges. So the first, there were 5 drivers who finished in Brazil a lap down. Oscar and Daniel and Nico. Well, we all watched them get into that crazy first lap situation with tires flying and people spinning around and hitting each other. So that, you know why that is. And then you'll find other drivers. Logan was lapped in Brazil as well, Esteban, and so on and so forth. What I found fascinating is the entire grid has been lapped in the last 2 years. Even the great Lewis Hamilton in Imola in 2022, last time he was lapped. But there are 3 drivers who haven't been lapped in the last 2 years. 3 drivers who have avoided that situation in the last couple of seasons. 2 of them were lapped in 21, and I found it interesting as their teammates. So it's been since 2021 that either Carlos or Charles had been lapped. So Ferrari, for all the grief they took in 23, we know they were good in 22, right? They were challenging at the beginning of the season, the new regs, they really did a great job. In 23, they never finished down a lap. And so that's something to be said. Like, I know we knocked on them a bunch expecting more, but that was interesting. The only driver beyond them who has, in the last time they were lapped, well, get ready for another season of this. I don't want to be a Dodds here, but here we go. Max F. Verstappen. And it wasn't 20. It wasn't 19. It wasn't 18. It was Italy in 2017, the last time Max finished a lap down. Damn! Talk about consistency. I always say he's a generational talent. He may not be my favorite, but I am in awe of his ability. 2017, the last time he was lapped.
And it is a great stat. The only thing a little bit of kind of water I would pour on the
You
flames
see the
is
little
that,
Reddit sticker in the corner, you're going to discredit it, but go for it.
No, not going to discredit it at all. I'm just going to say that obviously some of those drivers have crashed out many times, which won't count as being, or have had engine failures. So as soon as you DNF, it doesn't count as being lapped.
Correct. You have to classify.
Exactly. So it is a great stat. But if every time you've kind of sucked, you've ended up pushing too hard and crashed out, for example, then you avoid the situation of being lapped. That's all I was going to say. So
well, that's well said.
No, that is a good stat.
And we'll close the stats and actually do our first report from Pitlane Paul. How excited are you for this?
When I wasn't sure he was going to do it, so when the email dropped in and we had a testing review from Pitlane Paul, the season's back when our inbox gets a Paul Harris music file.
Tremendous.
Audio file.
Well, let's play his music and let's hear from Paul. All right, and I have not heard this one, so I am excited to hear what Pitlane Paul had to say.
Hey now, first one of the year. It's the morning after F1 testing has finished. I'm always quite positive about things, as you know, so I'm going to be positive on this one. F1 testing is arguably more boring than FP1, FP2 and FP3 combined. So I'm not going to get overly excited by it. And I'll tell you the reason why. And, it's obvious there are certain teams that are looking faster. Red Bull, needless to say, are looking good. Ferrari looking really good. Maybe Aston Martin. Then you sort of have McLaren, Mercedes, Stake F1 team, Kick Sauber, whatever the hell we're called now. So it actually sets up been a good year, but the thing with testing is don't get too blown away by the lap times, because nothing's overly relevant with terms of testing. There's no regulations that need to be followed as such with a car, so you can do what the hell you like. You can run the car 300 kilo underweight. You can do anything you want. Why you do that is more the point. Would you do that? Would you, for instance, if you're trying to sign a big sponsor, send your car out with a ridiculously light package so you can get the attention as you appear top of the timesheets on the other top? That's not unheard of, I guess. So keeping it realistic, I don't get too blown away by the performance here. What I would say is I think you have to wait almost till next week, till next Friday. Now, obviously, bearing in mind everything's a day earlier in Bahrain and Jeddah, so qualifying is on Friday, races on Saturday. So I still think qualifying is going to be the first time you're going to actually have any idea how things are. But looking at it, the earliest thing, I haven't paid a great deal of attention, I won't lie, but Red Bull, needless to say, look like they're doing a good job. Max is well ahead, as you would expect, to be fair. Then, I think you've got a mix of two Ferraris. Maybe Perez will slot in after them. I don't know. Aston Martin looked reasonably good, as I've just mentioned. So, it's good to be back underway. I'm genuinely excited for next week. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to be the start of what is a good season. I think Max runs away with it again. I don't want to disappoint people, but I think I said at the end of last year, I don't see how that changes. But the battle, I guess, in the midfield is the one that we're sort of looking forward to a little bit more. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I don't see Mercedes at this time have taken a huge step forward enough to be challenging for race wins. So I hate to say it's going to be very similar to last year. I think it is. But I actually think that there's going to be... Hey now.
Something happened with the... I didn't do anything. You saw...
I think he was just wrapping up there, basically, to say how he enjoys Bahrain. And can't wait to be there next week. So well done, fat fingers on the buttons there.
I'm sorry.
Paul. You better bust his chops for that for the next one you send in. But two things that when I heard that, it kind of jumped right out to me, which was didn't realize that they don't have to abide by regulations. So the fact that you could run a car, much lighter. I knew we didn't know fuel loads. I didn't realize we didn't necessarily know the weight of the car. So that was interesting. The other thing, me and you have both just shown how we know nothing by kind of showing Aston Martins. We're not really sure we saw anything. We didn't really read any performance into it. He's got them right up there on the inside knowledge, going, Aston Martin looked good. When did you...
Well, I mean, so, yeah. We obviously know nothing. But I would say there's two battles that I'm interested in. There's Max. Let's forget about him, which we did last season, and talk about the best of the rest. That includes Checo, but let's the best of the rest. And then the midfield. And I'm excited for the midfield battle, for the teams that are, the RBs, the Stakes, the Alpines, maybe in the Williams. I look forward to that kind of tier as well. So I'll be paying attention to those. I can't wait. I will ask this. He keeps talking about Aston Martin. Are we talking about Fernando or are we talking about Lance? Because, again, like Red Bull, I think there's a difference. I think if you're talking about Fernando, he could go sniffing around up there with the best of the rest. If you're talking about Lance, it's, is he in the best of the rest? I hate to say that.
It depends which version of him turns up, because he... And I kind of forgotten how long he'd been around. Drive to Survive kind of made me remember it, where they were kind of showing him come through. And I was like, damn, yeah, you can't really sort of say that he's maybe still got recent rookie-ish inconsistency to his driving, because actually he's been around for a while. And yeah, you've got flashes last year of like almost going toe-to-toe with Fernandez when they started the season off like a rocket ship,
right,
which we'll talk about in a minute. It's a nice segue to the Bahrain preview. he showed he did have it. Then he went through like a mid-season meltdown where he seemed to struggle to kind of grab those last couple of points while Fernando was still putting it higher. Then both of them fell away because the car fell away. Right back towards the end, he kind of started showing that he could do it in a car again. So God knows which Lance Stroll turns up this year. We will, I guess we will find out.
We'll find out. Well, Paul, thank you for that report. I'm sorry I clicked the button a couple seconds early. That's my fault. All right, so we're really lucky. We are doing a DRS and the Who Wants to Host the Dirty Side quiz with Adam from FantasyHQ. We'll turn it over to me from a few hours ago.
Box.
We are super excited to be joined by Adam from FantasyHQ with us today and many other places. Adam is the man when it comes to fantasy Formula One and Formula One in general. He's a great content creator and a friend of the show. I would highlight before we say welcome to Adam, he won our knockout pool last year. So with that, welcome Adam.
Brian, you're making me blush. Thanks so much for having me on and for the glowing intro. This is fantastic.
Well, of course, like I said, you're a great follow on Twitter, which is where we kind of connected months and months and months ago. And you work with friend of the show, Fantasy Hub Rob. And so it's just a natural time to have you on. We've been trying for a while and our schedules haven't met yours. So thanks for joining us. And are you ready for the new format where we start early with the 100 seconds of DRS?
Let's go for it. I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So you've drawn the short straw, and Brian's going to be asking you the questions.
I'm very
going to be
slow,
in charge.
Adam. I apologize.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Proven by fact as well. There's been a scientific study into this, and it's proven that Brian is slow asking the questions. But it's a new season.
Math.
It's a new season. It's a new Brian. So this could be fast. So don't say no already, Brian. Right. Okay. So I got the timer ready. Are you ready, Adam?
I'm ready, Rob.
Are you ready, Brian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start the 100 seconds of DRS in 3, 2, 1, begin.
Best F1 driver on the grid today.
Max, unfortunately.
Favorite F1 track.
Spa, but it has to be dry.
Okay. Favorite restaurant.
There's a restaurant in Providence called Gracie's, and I just love it.
Oh, I'm going to have to put that on my list. Is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Correct. Cats or dogs?
I have one 90-pound black lab, and I just love dogs.
Oh, fantastic. Favorite livery of all time on an F1 car?
Ooh. You always remember your first, so I'm going to probably say the MP4 22, one of Lewis's first cars.
Yeah. What's your first memory of F1? Is it that as well or no?
Yes. So I was at the 2007 Australian Grand Prix. It's the first Grand Prix I saw start to finish, and it was in person, and it was Lewis's first race. So
that's amazing.
Very firm, very core memory.
Do you have any lucky superstitions?
I have to watch the intro theme before watching the race to get myself jacked up.
DRS, good or bad?
Good.
Similarly, tires, good or bad? Interesting or not?
I wish the tires made the experience more interesting. I think they're a little too reliable now. I wish we could go back a few years where maybe they were a little spottier. Make things interesting on track.
Do you know what the sky red button is?
I'm told of the sky red button on my ESPN broadcast, and I don't know what to do about it.
Wet or dry race?
Dry.
Mustache or mullet?
Ooh, which Botas hair do I like the most? Mullet.
And that's it. On that big drama, we end on the mullet. That was awesome. I'm going to dive straight into picking to one of the answers, Adam, because it's interesting. And you don't have to be. I'm going to guess from the early memory of Lewis that we're maybe a bit of a Lewis fan, and then there was a bit of hesitance in not hesitance, maybe Max, unfortunately. So. What were your feelings about Max Verstappen? And we're not trying to bring out kind of a hatery type thing, but is it just a problem at the moment? He's just too damn good and just too good a car as well.
That's what it is. And I think Max and our Red Bull, they've been unstoppable these last few years. I'm really eager for Lewis to get his 8th world title. And they've been so good year after year. Max's dominance in the car, what Adrian Newey's done to the technical, especially looking at them on track in this last week or so, all of the radical changes Red Bull have made despite being so dominant the last few years and still being seconds clear of the rest of the field. It's definitely a scary proposition for anybody that supports any other constructor. And so I think I really just want to see Lewis have one more strong season with Mercedes before I have to dump my closet out and start buying more red.
That's great.
Well, how do you think it went down? Like, I was watching testing, and they were looking at the new Red Bull and kind of the shape of it, and they were like, yeah, could have just kind of tried to maximize last year's design because they were already so far clear. They probably only need to eke a little bit more out, and they'll dominate again. And they're just almost so good that can you imagine? Like, Newey's walked in, seen Christian, and gone, yeah, I got this idea. We're going to radically change last year's design. He's like, whoa, hang on a minute, Adrian. And then it's like, actually, I've got to trust your pencil. Go do it. And then to see the reaction of some of the drivers milling around in the press, milling around that Red Bull on the at the track, at the paddock, they were kind of, you could just see these eyes of, oh gosh, here we go again.
Well, I mean,
It takes so much trust to have that such a radical redesign of a winning car. I remember when the first renders came out, all of us said, "Oh my gosh, have they lost their mind?" And everyone's circling where they think the side parts are, where they think the shape of the inlets are, and here it is on track, dominating like it always does.
Well, and I just got caught up late last night with a little bit of the testing. I was traveling a bit, and there was sort of the school of thought, Rob, to your point though, that they'd maxed out the 19, right? They'd maxed out that design or come close. They didn't think there was much more juice to be squeezed, and that people were copying them. And by people, apparently they gave the designs right to RB and said, "Here, use these," and then other people will copy on their own via photographs and things. So if that's true, then they felt maybe this design had more to it. But I mean, that does take some serious cojones to be like, yeah, one of the greatest cars of all time. We're going to go away from it on our own accord.
More than that, we're going to head towards a Mercedes. On face value, we're going to head in the direction of a Mercedes design that didn't work.
Well, Adam and Rob, what do you guys call those things? Since we just finished testing, right, as we're recording this on a Saturday, what do you call those things, like the shoulders, the haunches, those tubes right above Max's head to the ears where they have the air intakes, and then that large tube, it's like a pool noodle down the side of each side of the car. I mean, like, do we have a name for those yet that you've seen that you accept?
I haven't seen a name for it yet, but I'm open to suggestions. I called out the same thing too, Brian, looking at this going, what are these shapes? What are all the fun things? They were the water slides last year, and what fun names can we come up with this year for them?
Well, I think they've actually got, just in my views, remember Ferrari when they really came out last year with the bathtub above the side pods? It's like Red Bull have gone, we like the bathtub, but we want it up higher so we can kind of look down everywhere else. We kind of put two little mini bathtubs either side.
Well, now I'm curious, if it rains and the car is stopped, will it pool in those things, or will it run off? Have they designed a pit? Anyway, so Adam, talk to us a little bit about your love of fantasy, and how long have you been into fantasy F1? Did it start with fantasy F1, or did it start with other fantasy sports? Like, how was your genesis kind of getting FantasyHQ going into the machine that it is today?
So I've been a fantasy NFL player since 2000. So I've been playing fantasy sports for a long time, and the type of NFL fantasy content that I really enjoy the most are articles that summarize what we saw on the field on Sunday, what it means for the long-term value of the players. And I started playing F1 fantasy 2 years ago and did really well at it, just by my own intuition, using a tool here or there. And I entered last season wondering, I wonder if the F1 fantasy community has this same hunger for articles that break down what we saw on the track, bring together what we have from some of these tool websites, and maybe I could start to form a community around that. So that's when I started F1FantasyHQ.com. It was last March, literally the Saturday afternoon of Bahrain qualifying. And I just dove into it head first, and the outcome at the end of last season was just fantastic. Over 115,000 viewers on the website. I started the fantasy formula with Rob from F1 Fantasy Hub, like you mentioned earlier. He's a friend of the show. We have this partnership with FanAmp, which is a terrific app that brings the F1 fan experience all under the hood of one app. Things like tickets, race experiences, stats, news, connecting with content creators, and a whole lot more, all under that one app. So I went from blindly going into this website last March into a community, a lot of really great friends like the both of you, and a lot of momentum going into 2024.
And I would add,
awesome.
You mentioned your website, but I would also add, if you're not following Adam on Twitter at F1FantasyHQ, you're missing out, because basically before I put my lineups in, I check Adam and Rob, and I check FantasyHQ and Fantasy Hub, and I kind of get some ideas to help me out. Now, I will say this. I have beaten our Rob, Dirty Side Rob, handily 2 years in a row now. The first year I got
Last year was closer.
it was a lot closer. Last year
Yeah.
the first year I got really lucky. And I did really well, even though I lost Andy. Andy, I know you're out there listening. Andy was like number 28 in the world or something crazy, and he kicked me. Yeah, I was 333 in the world and finished second in our tiny little league, which
That's amazing.
hurt my ego terribly. And then last year
I found
finished
it hilarious, but never mind.
last year I was like, I don't know, 15th or 20th in the league. I slipped and fell a little. Still beat Vale, but that's okay. But my point is for everybody out there who enjoys fantasy, and for me now, I have a little less time, but I really love the content. Having someone like Adam with Fantasy HQ and Rob with Fantasy Hub and the way they partner with to create Fantasy Formula, it's amazing. It's like you've done such a great job, Adam. The way top 5 this, 5 things to watch here. You've created in today's environment an easily digestible way to think about fantasy F1, and I love that, and I appreciate your work, and like I said, everyone should be following you. Now, here's the real question. You have to work with a Rob. I have to work with a Rob. Which one is more annoying? It's clearly mine, correct?
Don't even bite on that, Adam. Just don't. Let's just not give Brian the airtime here.
Fair enough, Rob.
I had a real question for yes, I have a real question for you. So I fell out of love a little bit with fantasy last year because of the template situation that arose where just because of the way the chips fell, like everybody had almost the exact same team because there wasn't enough variety. Am I getting too optimistically ahead of myself looking at testing to think if Max stays ahead and everybody has Max, I'm kind of seeing this world where it looks like McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Sergio, maybe VCARB, RB, Cash App, whatever, are all kind of coming into the mix, and they seem to have got the valuations a little bit more sorted.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of thinking beyond maybe a locked and loaded Max, all the other spots seem fairly not fluid because there will be a pattern that emerges. But am I getting too optimistic that we're going to have an amazing season for fantasy this year?
No, I'm right there with you, Rob. So what really upset the apple cart last year was Aston Martin really came onto the scene strong in preseason testing, but pricing had already come out at that point. So Aston Martin were priced as the 6th or 7th constructor, but consistently putting up podium finishes in the first month of the season. So that's where the template fell in. People were running triple Red Bull, triple Aston Martin, and there was very little parity between the teams. And so we had a lot of players drop off somewhere around May, and you just have thousands of zombie teams going through the rest of the season. It wasn't until Canada or so that F1 really started upping their game on changing the prices more dynamically week to week. This year, I feel really confident that the game is giving us more options for different lineups week to week. If you start Max and Red Bull, that's 57.8 million of $100 million budget. And so then you really have to figure out what are the best budget options to make the rest of your team work. It's usually some combination of RB, Alpine, Lance Stroll, Alex Albon. So you have to get really creative, or you could dump either Red Bull or Max and then start bringing in various Ferrari, McLaren, or Mercedes assets. So I think you're going to see a big spread in the Bahrain lineup configurations for this week.
I'm so excited for that. I'm like hearing you talk about the options. I'm so excited, especially because I have a couple of those in my lineup already. Oh man, and I
will admit to, and I know it's only testing, and I shouldn't have done this, but we've got infinite changes at the moment till the season starts. I had to go in there and cull Alex out of my lineup because that Williams just looks like a hunk of junk at the moment. And with Danny Rick being there, I had a little bit of money left over, went for my original lineup, and I was like, watching Danny Rick in that car, I'm thinking, sorry, Alex, you're done. Out you go. In comes Danny Rick.
I mean, I'm the biggest Toro Rosso fan. Like last week on this episode, Rob had to actually like cool me down. I was getting so excited about what Toro Rosso's bringing to the table. That's my name for them now. I can't use the other ones. And I cannot wait. So I've already had Yuki and Toro Rosso or RB, and so then I may have to go triple RB. Adam, if I go triple RB, am I crazy? And if I'm not crazy, just know I'm out there doing my thing with RB.
You're not crazy at all. And so RB is the most owned constructor, and Danny Rick is the second most owned driver in the game as of right now. So the people agree with you. And when in doubt in the early part of the season, just rank by the ownership, and at least you won't be terribly off the pace of tens of thousands of other teams. So I think you're on the right track.
The wisdom of the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. You're following the crowd. And I think also there's so much to be excited about with Visa, Cash App, Red Bull, or RB, or Toro Rosso, or whatever you'd like to call them, because they've borrowed the front and rear suspension of the RB19. There are so many elements they keep stacking onto that car, and they were the most upgraded car on the grid in 2023. So there's so much to like about their potential going into this year. Plus, you have two drivers on a contract. They really need to perform well to prove that they have a future on the grid.
And even potentially in the Red Bull seat. I mean,
that's
they're
what I was
really
say.
going for it.
This absolutely is Danny Rick's audition year, right? I mean, he came in last year after De Vries got binned, then broke his hand, then finished pretty solidly. But this is the year that if he wants to show that he should be taking Checo's seat, then he's got to maximize what he's got there. He can't be losing to Yuki, and he needs to be getting that car where it goes. So I think they could be punching above their weight. They might be last year's Aston. I'm not sure they're going to get to podium straight out the gate, but they're the ones I'm looking at and thinking, probably reading too much into testing, but they're looking a bit feisty.
I got a little busy this week, like I said. I did not get a chance to go buy enough RB merch, and when I buy enough, I mean any. But I think I'm going to rectify that the minute we hang up this recording. I'm going on Amazon because I need it now. I need it ASAP. I need some Prime merch delivery ASAP.
I love
I'm
that.
not going to wait for Bahrain and actually see if they do blow up.
Why would I wait for something to prove itself?
More power to you, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, the race is on Saturday, so I need it here fast. So Adam, you mentioned this quickly, and we'll kind of go into this a little bit too. Spa is your favorite track, but dry, and so I appreciate that. I hope you know, and for anyone listening, we are about to launch the final of the February F1 Fantasticness bracket, where we're naming the best track in F1. We're voting through the ranks, and Spa is still alive. So I appreciate that. It's going to need all its help because I think it's going to end up going against Silverstone, and all the Brits are going to be out in force on the Silverstone bandwagon. So I love Spa as well. What is it for you that draws you to Spa?
I think there are just some elements that are legendary. Some of the turns and the history of that track really stand out to me, but also some of the history has some negative connotations. We've lost some great drivers over the year there. So I think that and the heavily shortened race 2 years ago is part of why I insist on a dry Spa, but it has some history, some good and some bad.
I'm a big fan of. I'm just a sucker for a racetrack with elevation changes. I love Spa, I love Brazil, I love Austria because of those kind of, watching a car crest over hills, and it's just got everything for me. Spa's got the straights, the hairpin, the bus stop, the legendary first corner where it looks like I could run faster than the cars actually go around that first corner. So I'm with you there, and it will be, the pole on threads has kind of evened out as well, and they're both kind of matching. I think we've got the same final four going into the polls, and it looks on both sides we're going to be going for a Silverstone Spa final. It's going to hurt to vote against Spa, but I probably will. But it's an awesome track.
And while that was a farce of a race, you mentioned it did give George a podium, which really didn't happen in my humble opinion, and some of the greatest audio of your driver.
I went to the toilet. The one I went to, someone had dropped a crazy bomb in there. It was the worst thing ever.
How did you find that so fast?
I have favorite audio clips saved here on the board, and that Spa audio of his sitting in the car waiting for the race to start, one of my favorites. Oh, okay. It is amazing. Well, not that he had that experience, but the audio is. And so the question I have for you, Adam, is as we've kind of talked about, we're starting a new thing here at the Dirty Side. Who wants to host the Dirty Side? And it's a quiz show with, actual right and wrong answers. It is clearly the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is a copy of us. They copied us. We hadn't
they copied us.
yet.
Yeah, they copied us. Yeah, we came up with this idea 20 years ago before we had an idea for the pod. Yes.
Correct, we did. And they stole it from us, so we have stolen it back. Are you interested in giving a shot at the Who Wants to Host the Dirty Side?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Awesome.
So very simple. 15 multiple choice questions. You have 3 lifelines that you can play. You can only play each of them once. The first one is box, which is you're not changing tires, you're changing the question. So if I read a question out and you don't like it and you think, you can play box and we'll swap a different question in instead. You have a 2-stop strategy, which is you get 2 attempts at answering the question. So it's kind of like the 50-50, but it's, if you're not quite sure between 2 answers, you can play 2-stop strategy and you'll get 2 chances at answering it. And then the final one, which you can only activate on the first 14, we don't let you play it on the 15th, is to activate DRS and skip the question. So those are your 3 lifelines. Box, 2-stop strategy, activate DRS. So Brian's going to be running the timer. You do only have kind of like 10, 15 seconds to think of your answer. So from the moment I finish reading out the 4 options, you're up against the clock in a high-pressure stakes game.
Yes, about 10 seconds or so each, but I did also forget the song. And Andy made us this song, so again, we're getting good at this. Here is the intro to the quiz show song.
Do need the voiceover at this point. We got to get somebody to do a voiceover.
We do. Andy, thank you for the music. We were getting there. All right, Adam, Rob's going to start now. I'll announce when you're reaching towards the end of the 10 seconds if you're still thinking, but I think the first few you will do smashingly. Robert, to you, sir.
Okay, Adam, here we go. Question number 1. What does COTA stand for? Circuit of the Awesome, Circuit of the Austin, Circuit of the Americas, or Circuit of the Amazing?
Those are some good choices, but I'm going to go with Circuit of the Americas.
You'd be right. Well done. On to question 2. Gilles Villeneuve's son won the World Drivers' Championship in '97 and came on this here little pokey podcast. What's his name? Is it John, Jerry, Jules, or Jacques?
Jacques.
Yes. Well, look at this. Skipping through them. Okay, the area in which you cannot change your car within the paddock is called A, Parc Fermé, B, Park and Ride, B, Park Prohibited, C, Paddock Fermé.
A, Parc Fermé.
See, look at this. Okay, pitting before your opponent to try and gain an advantage so you can come out after the stop. Well done for massacring the question there, Rob. It's called A, the undertake, B, the undercut, C, the underpass, or D, the underwear.
So go with B, the undercut.
You don't fancy underwear?
Not in that strategy.
That's a whole different podcast.
Undercut is correct. Okay, coming to the end of kind of the warm-up questions here. The blue stripe tires are referred to as what? Full wets, rain rubber, slicks, or marbles?
Go with A, full wets.
You have passed the first 5 and you are on your way.
This is a win for me.
This is one that does require a little bit of a knowledge of the show.
So you may need the lifeline if that's okay.
Yeah, you may. Our roving reporter Pitlane Paul works with which F1 driver? Logan Sargent, Pierre Gasly, Max Verstappen, or Valtteri Bottas?
It's Valtteri.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's right.
Of course it is.
Valtteri was on the show. I won't play the sound though because you're in the middle of a game show.
We're on to question 7. In 2022, Sebastian Vettel was fined in Australia for doing what in order to get back to the pits? Was it A, walking along the track, B, riding a scooter, C, getting a lift from another driver, or D, flagging down the safety car and getting a ride with the safety car? Ooh. First time that we've drawn breath before answering.
I want to make sure I don't mess this up. I'm going to go with the 2-stop.
He's playing this 2-stop strategy. Okay. What's your first bite at the cherry going to be?
I'm going to go with B, riding a scooter.
Oh, you should have trusted your instincts because you're right, but the lifeline's gone. Okay. On to question 8. Which race did Brian and Rob go to last year? Was it A, Miami, B, Monaco, C, Monza, or D, Montreal?
D, Montreal.
Yes, and I was quite glad that I managed to find 4 that begin with M.
I was going to say the same thing. They even sounded like Monaco, Monza, Montreal.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Right, question number 9. Which driver leads the way with 8 career Grand Slams? So pole, winning, leading every lap, and fastest lap. Is it A, Jim Clark, B, Lewis Hamilton, C, Ayrton Senna, or D, Max Verstappen?
Ooh.
Yeah, things are getting serious now.
Remind me again, what's the box lifeline?
The box is we can swap it out for a different question. You don't swap your tires, you swap the question if you don't like it. Or you can activate DRS and skip this one. Those are your 2 left.
I'm going to DRS and skip it.
Ooh. Okay, do you want to have a little guess as to who it was?
Just for
see
fun.
If you're right.
I'm tempted to say Max because he's just been on such a crazy run lately.
Oh, see, that was a well-played lifeline because it was Jim Clark.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, with 8 of them. Right, okay, question 10. Getting very close to Andy's marker here at top of the leaderboard of answering 11 correct. So question 10. Oh, now this one. See, this we would probably need to enter to the show because it's not even Formula One rated. So I really apologise for this. Rob's favourite F1 team is Ferrari, but what English Premier League team does Rob support? A. Arsenal, B. Manchester United, C. Liverpool, D. Manchester City.
Yep, we're gonna have to box that one right out.
I got to box. Yeah, unless you kind of listen regularly, because I do tend to slot in references to the team. It's Arsenal, the mighty Arsenal. Okay, so
you're going to like the replacement, I think.
Yes. So, where are we? What question were we up to? I've got to look at my swap out, haven't I? So, yeah. I think you're going to be pretty happy with the swap out. Okay, Michael Schumacher was dominant in a McLaren, a Ferrari, a Red Bull, or Prost F1.
Ferrari.
Yes, well done. Right, here we go. To equal the leaderboard, question 11. Okay. Ooh.
But out of lifelines, right? Out of
lifelines as well. So this is going to have to be a real reach, I think, unless you know it. I mean, you might with your fantasy stats. Max is currently on a 41 race streak of points finishes, which puts him second behind Lewis. How many did Lewis get on his maximum points finishing streak? Was it A42, B44, C46, or D48?
Oh boy, could you have clustered those any closer?
I told you, Vale's a real tough guy.
We're up to the top end of it. We're up to the top end. We're 3 away from the end, right? It's got to be kind of.
All right, we're doing a wet finger in the breeze on this one. I'm gonna say 44.
So we'll put the incorrect answer song in there at some point, Brian.
How about this one? We can use this.
Perfect. Give me the Price is Right.
There you go. And the price is actually 48.
It was 48. It was the top one. He really, huge run there. Yeah, maybe, in hindsight, they are a little bit clustered too close, but it's 10 correct. That's second place on the leaderboard, Adam. I think that's a pretty good show in there.
2. I'll take it. There we go.
I wasn't going to say that, but just
You're on the podium.
You are on the podium. Oh, thank you so much for doing that. And I think I just need to sometimes learn how to actually pronounce the questions that I've written. That's a little lesson learned for next time. But
let me know who you're going to have on this next so I can take them out drinking right before they come on.
Done.
Or, I can maybe get you to write the question set if you want. We'll start off on question 1 with the Lewis question you just had.
What's the third letter of Lewis's middle name? Yeah.
Oh, man. Adam, having you on has been awesome. Getting to know you more, really appreciate it. As we said earlier, definitely make sure to follow Adam, FantasyHQ, and his website, on Twitter, and Fantasy Formula. Check him out all over because the content is top notch. And like I said, thank you for joining us last year for the knockout pool and winning that. We're going to do that again in the mid-year. I'm going to tighten up the rules a little bit because Vale kept screaming at me that a DNF shouldn't count as an exclusion. I'll fix that.
Let's just. I think that's a valid. Adam. All the stats and running the fantasy. Okay, if your objective is to pick that driver A will beat driver B, and your driver A finishes and driver B DNFs, I think you picked correctly because you said A would beat B, and they did. What do you think?
Well, I think that would count, particularly if someone DNFs in the last few laps because they would still classify.
Right.
Despite the DNF. So I think they do technically win. And then at what point are you splitting hairs versus...
That's exactly why I made it.
That's why he was overthinking this. And I said, don't worry about
No.
splitting hairs. Just simply say that if driver A finishes the race and driver B doesn't because he crashes on lap 1, your driver won. You go through to the next round.
But what if
Easy
they
peasy.
both DNF and the driver you pick DNF first?
This is where you
That's why I wanted no gray. No gray, baby. All right, well, I'll tweak the rules anyway, so everyone keep an eye out for that. And join Adam's league, which we'll put a link to, and our league while we're at it, because we still need to get some more folks in there. We'll put all the links in the show notes, which come out. It'll be out tomorrow. So, Adam, thank you again so much for joining us, sir.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure being on.
Box.
Well, thanks, Adam. That was absolutely brilliant. And kind of just how amazing that their fantasy league has kind of made it into kind of being sponsored fantasy level and kind of got a gazillion entries in there. So make sure you go and join his league. Also join ours because ours is going to be cool too. And you can't win a Dirty Side t-shirt over on his league.
That's right. I don't care if you're partnered with F1 or not. We can't get a Dirty Side t-shirt over there. You can get it at our Redbubble store, www.dirtysideofthetrack.com. All right. So that's it, man. Race preview time. We are there. This is it. we are officially done with the off season because we're previewing an actual race with podiums and pole positions and finishers and FPs 1s and 2s and 3s. And here we go. Rob, are you excited for Bahrain, the race?
I am, and it will be the 20th time we've been around here, apparently.
Wow.
We're going to take on 57 laps of the circuit, 15 corners in all. I think it's always delivered. I was kind of looking at last year's notes. Not going to lie, pretty much copied and pasted last year's notes in terms of kind of looking forward to this track. Is that, again, custom built track, and because it's out in the middle of nowhere, you've got a little bit more license to kind of make the track as you see fit. And I think it's always kind of delivered decent racing. Last year, which kind of was a huge foreshadowing for the entire season, was that it was dominated by Red Bull. They actually, although actually maybe not a full foreshadowing, because actually in this race, Max and Checo took 1-2 in both qualifying and the race. The two of them were untouchable, which we thought was going to remain all year. True for one of them, not so much the other.
Fernando had a podium.
Fernando smashed it. That was his first Aston race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He joined last year, right? Yeah. So he went and kind of put that one up on the podium there after kind of chasing the Ferraris down, and that was just awesome. And Lance, kind of going back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, was absolutely magnificent in getting that car around the track and getting a credible, wherever he finished, 6th or 7th, because he had his broken wrists and barely and broken toes. So Aston had a fantastic time in Bahrain. So yeah, I seem to kind of really enjoy the races here. So I've got big hopes for next week. And it is funny how some of the early stuff you kind of look back on and go, yeah, I didn't plan out so much, did it? So Zhou got the fastest lap in an Alpha.
Zhou with the fastest lap last year?
Yeah, he did. He got the fastest lap. And you're like, well, there's some pace in that Alpha. Let's see what they can bring for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul.
All right, so before we close and highlight a few other things, predictions. We started doing this last year.
We got to do the repeat winners yet. I haven't finished the. Come on, there's still preview mode. So
it's new to me. Again.
I thought I'd copied and pasted this wrong because I thought Max was a repeat winner, but he can be this year. But if we look at the repeat winners, we've got 5: Lewis Hamilton, 2014, 2015, 2019, 2020, 2021. We got Seb in there. Fernando, Felipe Massa has got 2. Ferrari are the standout constructors ahead of Mercedes and Red Bull and Renault, which Alpine are not going to be adding to that next week.
I don't think so. Could you imagine if Alpine won next week? It'd be insane.
After us beating up on them so much. They're rubbish. Their engine's got not enough horsepower. Livery sucks. They're terrible. They go,
look at us.
And they go and grab a 1-2. Chef's kiss reference there, Brian. I love it. Predictions.
Yeah, I know we started doing this. I'll go first because I realized we have to do this to close. I got Max winning. Shocker there. And then, boy, I'm going to read too much into testing and a lot of my heart. And I'm going to say Charles is going to finish second, and I'm going to put Carlos on the podium too. I got 2 Ferraris on the podium.
Okay, so when you said that...
I almost said Danny Rick in an RB.
Yes.
I wanted to say Danny Rick RB third because I am that all in. I am going on Amazon and getting some merch ASAP for RB, VCARB.
That's where I thought you were going. When you give her that big kind of like lead in of I'm going to go with my heart, I was like, oh my gosh, he's got Danny Rick in second. No, so, okay, so you've gone Max, Charles, Carlos. So
correct.
Red Bull, Ferrari.
Oui.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, no, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to try and talk in French because I just can't speak English. Right, so I will go with my top 3. Max, shock horror. Checo, so I think it's a repeat of last year's 1-2.
Okay.
Because he likes this track. The car looks good. It tends to be later in the season that the Checo machine falls apart. So we're going to get the false dawn of he's going to do really well this year again. And he's going to fight for his right. And he's going to fight off Danny Rick. And we'll probably be that way for about the first 4 races of the season. And then Checo time will kick in and off the rails we shall go. Sorry, Checo. And then grabbing the last spot on the podium. I can't go with Lando even though I want to because I just don't believe the McLaren's got the pace. So I'm going to put Carlo to beat Charles.
Carlos.
I just think Carlo's going to drive with the bit between his teeth a little bit more this year because he's in the shop window all season. So, Max, Checo, Carlo.
Well, we'll see. We both have Carlos third and Max first. We'll find out if our second place predictions are different and or accurate. And if
do you want to add in this year because we will do our feature like we did last year, King of the Pits and the Pits when we do our reviews. do you want to make a call, a prediction on who's going to be your pits, like who's going to be the worst driver of the weekend, as well as our podium prediction?
I appreciate you giving me a heads up on this. Of all,
I've just thought of it just right now in real time. So in the same
sure.
way that,
Sure,
oh, let's do it.
My king of the pits is going to be Max, because I think he's going to dominate. I think we were going to see a triple crown here. Not a Grand Slam. I don't think he'll lead every lap, but I see him getting pole. I see him winning the race and having the fastest lap. So I could see Max with the triple crown. No Grand Slam. I once accurately predicted the Grand Slam. I'll never do that again. I tried another time and missed. I'm not doing it. So how about you? Who's your king?
I'm going to go somewhere that you should have gone, and I'm going to say my king of the pits is going to be Danny Rick, because he's going to end up in like fifth or sixth.
I saw you coming with it.
Yeah, so, and then because of that, that will be such an achievement that it will probably make my heart go with a Danny Rick king of the pits rather than a kind of a predictable Max domination one.
So the pits for next week's episode, when we review this, I'll go first again because I'll let you think. I'm saying Checo. I'm riding the same train that took me so strongly through the second half of last year. You ever hear the expression, they're still the champs until you beat them? He's still the chump until he's not. And I love Checo. I watched this offseason. I watched all the Checo content. I don't know what the hell happened to him in the second half of last year. And until he turns it around on track, I can't put any more money on my man. So I got Checo as my pits.
And part of me really wants to say that unfortunately I didn't see Williams show anything this week. And if they don't show anything, which means Alex can't maximize it.
You're going to say Alex is your pits?
No, if they don't have something that even Alex could maximize, then what chance has Logan got? And I think he's under huge pressure this year in his kind of, everyone thought he might bite the bullet last year, and James Vowles has kept him on. If the car had looked really good and slippery and we thought we were getting excited for what Alex might do with it, I think that I might have thought that Logan might. But when the car isn't as good, Logan tends to push it too much and then ultimately spins out really quickly. So I'm going to say Logan, even though I want him to have a great season.
Wow. I mean, are you expecting I don't understand how he could be the pits if you're expecting him to finish like 16th. But okay.
Because
he's going to make a mistake 16th, of it too.
Yes, I think he's going to get too overly, oh my God, I've got to do it this year. I worry we're going to see Nick De Vries this year in Logan, which is so much under pressure to prove that he needs the seat that he doesn't react to the pressure and maybe like crashes out in the first couple of laps.
Wow. Something to watch for.
Sorry, Logan. It's not because you didn't come on the show yet, by the way.
Well, anything you want to highlight before I close this out then?
Just we'll throw up the link to the fantasy. Click on fantasy. Also go on to Twitter and follow /F1. He does a great predictions league, which is free to enter, and it's easy and it's fun. And you might as well do an entry for a prediction while you're tweaking your fantasy team at the same time. So jump on there and get involved in the prediction league as well. And are you going to be doing the whatever it was called game again?
The knockout? Yeah, we'll do it middle of the year. We got to wait till there's enough drivers. Yeah, you can't use them all multiple times. We'll wait till the 20 races.
I didn't know if you're going to run it
10
twice.
races left.
Once through to halfway and then once way to...
We'll do that second half. So join the Fantasy League. Vote in the bracket. Check out who's going to win February F1 Fantasticness. Guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Dirty Side. We can't wait to talk to you in a week's time with a race review and another race preview because Saudi Arabia is right after that. Be well, everyone. Have a wonderful week.